Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, has just declined to run for the Senate seat in 2026, which puts Republicans in a position where they may not even be able to win that seat anymore. Looking at the Senate map for this year, we can clearly see that Republicans have a slight advantage in the popular vote, looking at a very accurate pollster big data poll, which is run by Richard Barris, the People's Pundit, who was the most accurate pollster in the 2024 presidential election. You can see he just conducted this poll and he has Republicans up by 2. Qantas, another very accurate pollster, also has Republicans up by a single point. You see Fox News was terrible during the 2024 election. They had Harris winning the popular vote. So did the New York Times / Siena. News Nation is also, their pollster is not really great either. And so you see all of these super inaccurate pollsters, except like Wall Street Journal, they were pretty good and they have Democrats up by 1. So right now you do kind of have an inflated aggregate for the Democrats. But right now you'd be looking anywhere from like a D+2 to an R+2 national environment. That's kind of what you'd be looking at right now. And based on Brian Kemp, who is deciding to not run for Senate, it is putting Ossoff in a position where he can actually end up doing very, very well in winning his re-election bid. And so looking at the Senate map here, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia are all going to be over 12-point victories. Kansas is also going to be a 13.5-point win. The last time that this seat was up for grabs in the re-election was actually all the way back in 2020. This was a seat that Sullivan won by 12.5 points. So it's a slight improvement of almost a point in the popular vote there. Looking at Texas, we see here just about a 7-point victory in the state of Texas for Ken Paxton. He'll probably be the one end up winning the Republican primary. And so you'd see him do fairly well there. And we even see, Iowa is going to be in that +12 column as of right now, including, the state of South Carolina at 15 points, Florida at 17 points. So you have quite a few states that are in that safe column. And just with the safe states, you already have Republicans at 49 seats. The Democrats would basically have to pick up the rest of the seats in order to narrowly take the majority in the Senate. And you see here, Texas is already like a 7-point win. So that puts Republicans at 50 seats already. And with Vance as the vice president, you're already at 51 potential seats. So that already wins the Republicans back the Senate. Now, when you look at Oregon, that is going to be in the safe column at almost 15 points. This seat in 2020 was a 17-point win. So that's what we're kind of seeing there. And then we even see Colorado, it's about an 11.8 percentage point win. So that's a likely margin in the state, as well as Illinois, a 19-point win in Illinois for the Senate seat there. It was about a 16-point win last time, and Hickenlooper won by 9. So those are fairly, reasonable results for that area. Massachusetts, only a 19-point win. Rhode Island, 19 points as well. And Delaware, 16 points. So those come in the safe column, as well as New Hampshire. I mean, this seat has been trending left very recently. I mean, it was a 15-point win in the last election. In 2014, the Democrat only won by 3 points. And back in 2008, she had also won by 6 points. So the seat's been moving left over time, unfortunately. And you even see Sununu, who had actually won that seat a long time ago, and he actually lost the seat in 2008. So that's really interesting. But we do see in 2020, the Democrat won that seat fairly easily. It may be a little bit more competitive once we get some polling data out of the state. But as of right now, it is in the safe Democrat column there. And we have a couple more seats to go over. Virginia, about a 10-point margin of victory for the Democrat in that state as well. And we even have in Minnesota, Ohio, this is where we start getting into some other seats here. Ohio, about a 10-point win in the Senate race there. That's kind of what the model is forecasting. And even a likely margin in, New Jersey, an 8-point victory there. Also very interesting to kind of see that there as well. A likely margin of victory, an 8-point margin in the state of New Jersey. It's kind of, you know, a lot closer for Booker this time around. He's going to end up doing way less of a margin this time around than before. And even Ohio, at this point, there wasn't a seat open because it's actually Vance's seat. We see Vance won the seat by like 6 points in 2022. So, you know, it'll probably be a similar margin of victory. It shows it to be a little bit higher at like 10 points. And then what's also really interesting is the model is picking up the Michigan seat as a likely Republican seat as well. I don't know if this is something I'm going to have to review in the future, but that seat has been trending to the right very hard, to the point where in the modeling now, it's actually like a pretty solid Republican state. Because, I mean, when you look at the state and how it's trended, I mean, in 2008, I mean, it was a 30-point margin of victory. And then in 2014, it goes to Peters plus 13. And then in 2020, it's all the way down to like a 2-point margin. And this is as the nation has actually been getting, I mean, in 2012, I mean, you had a pretty, you know, in 2014, you had like a Republican ballot of R plus 6, and the seat was a D plus 14. But then when you look at like 2022 or like 2020, the popular vote got bluer, but yet the seat is still moving like 12 points to the right. So that's why that seat is trending so hard. Minnesota comes in as just like a 4-point win. That's it. North Carolina shows up as like a 6-point win. However, New Mexico's seat is showing up pretty close at just 2 points. And then you have Maine. Now, this is really interesting. Maine is a Republican-held seat, okay? It's a Republican-held seat, which is very fascinating. It has a Republican incumbent, but with Donald Trump not being on the ballot, it may be quite difficult for her to hold on. And she's kind of faced some controversy with the Republican base. And so that may end up causing her doom in these elections. And when you look at Georgia, which is the seat that Republicans just fumbled with, you know, with Brian Kemp not running now, you have about a 3-point win for Jon Ossoff. And the polling that I used was actually Marjorie Taylor Greene's. Now, do I think she lose by 10 points? No, but I do think she lose by like about 3 to 5. That I think is kind of the range she'd actually be losing by. And the reason why I say this is because I actually think she'd do better in the rural areas on average than Kemp would. And so because of that, you're going to get her doing better in the rules than expected. And so that's why you're going to see the state still kind of be closer than most people would anticipate it to be, but it is still going to fall in that lean column. And so the only flips would be Michigan to the Republicans and Maine to the Democrats. And that leaves the Senate at exactly the same margin as where it was before. So the toss-ups would be Minnesota, New Mexico, Georgia, and Maine. Those would kind of be your effective toss-ups for the Senate map in 2026. So make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.